Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. As always, I'm thrilled to chat to you, and I'm so excited to what you have to share with the audience here today. Before we get started, why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Perfect. And thank you for having me on. My name is Sarah DeGeorge. I am a digital marketing specialist. I typically work with small to mid-sized businesses to help them create their authentic voice for their target audience. And I typically do this with, paid marketing, organic SEO, public relations, content creation, social media management, marketing. I kind of wear all the hats. So I consider it a holistic approach to marketing. Yeah, I mean, that's mostly about what I do. When I'm not doing marketing, I am usually volunteering with, food, and delivering food to like the elderly. And I do a lot of animal rescue and rehabilitation. That's like my passion project. So on the personal.
I love that. And I think this is one of the things we're going to talk about today. You said that you do obviously you do marketing, but from a mindfulness approach. And I love that because I always talk about how you need to be authentic, how you need to be yourself, not copying other people and also not comparing yourself to other people. So I know we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that today. But I think the other thing that I'm very interested in is a little bit about your story as to how you got started becoming who you are today, but also how that journey has evolved to where you are now. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So my story is a little bit different. So I'm going to give as quick and easy of a story as possible. So I actually went into entrepreneurship right off the bat outside of college. I had worked in office, I had interned, I had done everything. And I had actually started applying for the typical 9-to-5 office jobs. I ended up getting really sick. Lots of doctor's appointments that put me really behind as I was like interviewing. I couldn't go to any of the interviews, and I'm sitting there laying in bed and I was like, well, I need to do something. So all of a sudden I was like, well, I have all these skills. I've interned. Like, why don't I just like see what I can do with freelancing? I had worked as a freelance news reporter in college. So I already kind of knew like freelance taxes and like the kind of like the whole idea of working for yourself, quote unquote. So I started kind of pitching my background to, local businesses and everything like that. And it kind of snowballed from there. So again, like you'll hear a lot of like peaks and valleys in my story. And, when you're first starting out, those valleys didn't feel good, but it actually was one of those things where in hindsight, it got me on this path. So my sickness actually ended up being like, jump starting this career and kind of taking me on a different path. So I guess that's like how I started, was from a kind of bad situation because it wasn't fun. And it was very exhausting for the few months that I was just not well. But it created a skill set of, having to pitch myself on top of the skill set of doing the work. And it gave me a good foundation. From there, I started to build my portfolio. I was working with a lot of people, and I feel like, and this goes into the whole mindfulness. This is kind of how that evolved. We cast a large net in the beginning and see what we can acquire. And then there's always that point, and this is kind of another valley, and I'm always very transparent about this part because I think it also opened up a lot of conversations for other people. Took on too much. I loved all the people I worked for, but I was working with too many individuals, and not necessarily like they were wonderful, but the sector wasn't something that I was enjoying working in per se. And this is kind of when everybody niches down a little bit. But I ended up having like a severe breakdown. Roughly, a couple of years in, I was just like, I'm taking on too much. I was embarrassed. I didn't know how to address it. And from there, I actually had to have a lot of hard conversations with people I enjoyed working with, but I had to, kind of say like, I want to be the best person to do the work, but I can't be the best person when I'm not the best person. And the thing is everybody was so gracious, and they were like, you need to take care of yourself first. And I obviously solved the issue. I was like, if I'm no longer working for you, here's a list of people that do the exact same thing I do. I think they're all wonderful, so I'm not leaving anybody high and dry. But it really kind of put me in this mindset of like, okay, I can't be doing everything. I can't be talking to everybody. I need to be talking to people that really are focused in on like what I want to be doing. So it was a really, like I said, it was a very jarring situation. But having had that happen to me, I then started talking with my other entrepreneur friends, and they're like, I've been going through the same thing you have. And it's just one of those things where I'm glad that the whole mental health discussion is becoming a little bit more commonplace, and it isn't so like, whisper, hush, hush. And I was like, okay, how can I start taking my skill set that I've worked on with marketing and kind of have the conversation in a way where it gives people actionable tips on how they can, market themselves, but also in a way that's sustainable to them. Because even though they're working with other people, it's still them. That's like, we are our business. So we need to be taking care of ourselves as well, especially our mental health. So that, again, valley of, was how I then came to this point where I'm using my skill set and I'm still working with, my clients and, building my skill set. But now I'm a little bit more focused with who I'm working with. Again, I casted the wide net, but now it's just like a little tinier net. I know who I enjoy working with, but then I also enjoy having these kind of important conversations on how, while there is algorithms and everything, and there is a, kind of with marketing, it needs to be done in a consistent manner. That consistency also needs to have sustainability in it. So it's really helped me kind of get a little bit more focused on what I do. So that's kind of like that's like the quick and easy story. There's a lot more to it, but that's kind of been my journey since when I graduated college, and that was around, it was almost, a decade ago, in a few years. So.
I think what I really like about your story is some of the people in the audience would relate to that, because there is so many of them who, and me included, who has started a business, but there was constantly, going up, climbing up the mountain, reaching the top, and then you're going down a valley again, as you've mentioned. But in addition to that, it is so much about learning. And I say this a lot, and I'll say it again. When you sign up for entrepreneurship, you actually sign up for a lot of self-development. And that's the key focus that not a lot of people know about. When they start an entrepreneurship, they go like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to make a success, which is great. And then they realize, oh, before I do this, I've got to figure out what I need to do. Who am I? Why do I want to do this? And that's the process. That's the self-development that you're going through. And you've gone through that yourself. And we're all still going through it. I mean, you're still developing as well, same as me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It's always, it's like ever evolving. It's like one of those things where you have that idea of where you want to be in a couple of years, but then when you finally get to that couple of years, you have a new idea of where you want to be. It's just like it's not like a thing where there's an end point per se. The end point is always, it's not like a thing where you're like you're never going to hit that point, but it's evolving so that when you finally get there, you're like, but I want to do something a little bit different now. And I think that's also, it can kind of be like the good and bad part of entrepreneurship, depending on how you look at it in a way. It's just like you're constantly growing. But sometimes, like, I guess for some people that are a little bit more like, I need an end point, it can be a little frustrating. But as long as you kind of understand that it's not that there isn't an end in sight, it's just that things change. I mean, even if we talk about marketing, how many times is like a social platform or a marketing platform changed its the user interface or the user experience, like every so many months, like even just the, skill sets and just the knowledge that you have for that. So like when you take that and then you put it into entrepreneurship, like you're constantly learning new things, talk to a new person, and all of a sudden you have a new idea of how you want to do it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a journey. It's a journey that each and every one of us are on. It's not just your life's journey. It's a business journey as well, if you're running a business alongside. But that's the fun of it, because things will always change. But every change is an opportunity to learn. And I mean, if we lived in a perfect life, gosh, I think we'd be very bored and we'd all be very boring in particular.
Yes.
And that's also something that I love to talk about. Maybe that's a topic for another day, but this is where people always come to me. It's like, oh my gosh, I really want to go into marketing and help people with their marketing. Or I really want to be a business coach, or I really want to be a yoga teacher, but there's so many other people doing what I want to do. So how can I stand out from the crowd? And it's like, well, just by being you. And you're unique as your DNA is, and that's what makes your business unique. Yes, other people could be offering the same services or similar services to what you're doing, but because of who you are and the way you think and why you're doing certain things, that's what makes your business unique. And like I said, that's a topic for a different day, because we can really dive into that. But I think it works very much hand in hand with what you want to talk about today. And that's all about how we can incorporate mindfulness into marketing. So why don't I just hand over to you and you talk to us about that? Because when I say when we incorporate mindfulness into marketing, a lot of people will go like, okay, but what does that mean?
Yes. So mindfulness, sorry, I almost pulled my earplugs out for a second. I got really excited and I put my hand down. Mindfulness and marketing basically is just like taking into account who you are and like how you operate and making sure that your marketing is in line with that. And I know that sounds maybe a little bit out there, but again, going back to what I had said earlier, like we are our business. So we need to make sure that we're creating a sustainable marketing approach, not a marketing approach, because there are a lot of articles out there. They tell you you need to post at this time if you're on social media, you need to do this, you need to do that, but they're not taking into account the person. It's a nice one size fits all. And, best practices are best practices, but then there's personal best practices. And I think that taking those ideas and incorporating them into a framework that works well for you is the best, because sometimes people take that and they take it, and they're like, I got to do this, I got to do that, and I got to do that. And then 3 months down the line, they're burnt out already because they were following somebody else's advice. And it's like, it's there for guidelines, but it shouldn't be how you run the business. So with that, I kind of have just like, a kind of an approach that I would take with mindfulness in marketing. And it basically begins with you. And it comes down to like, who are you? What do you stand for? And like, what are your values? How do they connect with your business right now? And how are you feeling with your marketing? What's working? What isn't? Sometimes we're like moving full speed ahead and we're not really sitting down and saying like, am I enjoying this? Am I doing this because this aligns with my values? Or am I doing this because I read an article on XYZ publication saying I should be doing this, but it's not making me feel good? So beginning with yourself is definitely like where you need to start, kind of like this mindfulness approach, for sure.
And I agree with that, because I've seen so many clients coming to me saying, I'm doing everything, I'm everywhere, but it's not working for me. It's like, well, that's the reason, because you're trying to do too much. And some of those things they're trying to do, and it's not aligned with who they are. So if there's no fun in it, why do it? It's just becoming a chore.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like when it becomes a chore, then it's like, because people go like, there is that part of entrepreneurship where you have kind of that control over what you're doing. And then when you move away from that and you give that control to something else or some other schedule that's been created out there, then it's no longer in your control. And I think that is, that's where a lot of problems just right off the bat run into. So that's kind of the beginning. The next is to move to your customer base. So that's the other half of the equation, of course, like, and you kind of look over what you're doing and expectations. So like, what have you created that your customers or audience expect from you? Is it like a certain social schedule? Like people always know that you're going to post on this day and you're going to give this, great social post or an email, something, a video that they look forward to, any sort of, or are you somebody that just has always done quick response times when they send like a direct message or an email where you're like immediately replying? And do those expectations fit what you truly want? Have you received any feedback from your customers about what they enjoy learning from you? What feedback have you received about what content they enjoy, what they maybe didn't enjoy? Did you make a post that people really resonated with? Did you make a post that some people really did not resonate with and you got a little bit of, not as good feedback on it? do you feel good with what you're sharing too? Like, do you feel like you're being vulnerable enough? Are you being too vulnerable? And what should you change and what should remain the same? Just based on a lot of different information that you may have received, in the form of like an email reply, or I really love this content, or, what is this, why are you saying this? And, this kind of also will help you see who your audience is, because if you continuously see certain people not resonating with you, you might get an idea like, maybe that isn't my ideal audience. I'm talking to too many people. Maybe this is my target audience. So getting that kind of feedback will also showcase what parts of your marketing are really working, and then also like allow you to assess like what parts of this, can I kind of cut back on, or have I been a little bit too, quick with my responses where people are, questioning why I haven't responded to them in like 4 hours. Have I gotten too close and not put up enough boundaries as well? So this is like a nice part to then go from yourself and then move to the customer and see how they're in alignment.
Yeah, no, I do like that as well. And in particular, because it's just looking at the statistics, isn't it? Just from what you were doing, seeing what works and what doesn't work, like you said. And then what doesn't work, put that to the side and concentrate on what works. But then also using that feedback to figure out who's your ideal clients, because the ones who are giving you feedback, who are responding and engaging with you, those are the kind of people that wants to hear from you. Those are the kind of people that you need to get in contact with and engage with, and obviously build that relationship with.
Yeah, you don't want to like leave those people where, and you absolutely want to respond to them too. That's also another, making time to respond to the people, because if you're kind of taking too much time, again, when you look at yourself and then the customer for maybe your non-ideal client, or you're just not responding because you're doing too many other things, then that's also not good. So again, mindful of like making sure you're engaging with the people that are engaging with you and that are really, a part of your ideal audience. Like you can feel that they're resonating and you're enjoying the conversation. But yeah, the next point is kind of, some people enjoy it, like the numbers people really would probably enjoy it, but whether you're a numbers person, it's really good to adjust from data. And data could be if you have Google Analytics on your website and you're seeing how people are engaging, if you have analytics for your, email services, if you are looking at your Instagram business analytics, anything like that can be a really good place to see what people are engaging with, when they're engaging, who's engaging. But again, I always like preface it by saying, like, I know numbers are not sexy, but I really think that they can play a big role. So some tips could be, dig a little into any of those analytics and see like, when are people engaging with, I posted at 9 p.m. and actually I got a lot of people responding, but then I posted it at 10 a.m. and nobody really responded. Maybe I could focus my time more on doing stuff later in the evening. I sent this email that was a little bit more matter of fact, and I didn't get as many emails opened as when I sent like a more personal email. And I really enjoyed writing that email. Kind of looking at those numbers. You can even create those numbers as well by creating a poll every so often with your audience, or even just writing, if you're on social media, asking them for feedback again. What do you like? How often do you want to get an email from me? Just checking in, like, are you enjoying what you're reading? Can you tell me what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy? Request feedback from your most engaged customers, the people that you consistently see responding wherever you may be posting, like an ad or, a Facebook post, Instagram, post, or, an IGTV story, anywhere that you are on. Trying to look at the data and gather more data can really solidify what you may be discovering from going from yourself to the customer, looking at the data. So it's a journey, but again, it really will help you become a little bit more, again, mindful once you go through the process on how you're spending your time with your marketing, and then kind of trimming down all the extras that you're like, nobody really cares. Not nobody cares. That's not the way to say it, but nobody is really resonating with this as much as they're resonating with this. And I enjoy doing this more than I enjoy doing this. So it kind of it gives other people's feedback into what you're already feeling and thinking. So
yeah, no, it's great. And it's good that you're saying that, because I actually did this exercise last week. I went and had a little bit of a look at my Google Analytics, in particular at all the podcast episodes going out, the topics going out. And I went and did a little bit of a list and looked at the numbers as to what kind of topics resonated with my audience, the ones that got the most likes, the most comments, and also the ones that got the most views. And then based on that, then I realized, there's a topic that seems to be getting a lot of attention. Maybe I need to dive a little bit into that. Maybe I need to bring something else on board. Maybe I need to talk to another expert like yourself and bring that topic onto board to expand that a little bit. So it really works in so many ways, because again, it's that feedback that you're getting. And numbers never lie. They always tell you the truth. So by just looking at those numbers, I immediately knew that I need to go down a certain path and start exploring one or two topics in particular a little bit more, and bring that kind of expertise and content to the podcast. So that is something I'm working on at the moment. And I wouldn't have known that if I didn't do the Google Analytics and if I didn't check up to see where the numbers lie.
No, and I agree. And it can sometimes, like, this also could be very helpful, again, for like a content calendar. Now that you know what the content is, you can do a keyword search, for example, to see what people are searching for on like on Google or any search engine, and then see what topics people are, searching for. Now that you know that this main topic, now you can figure out what like subtopics you can branch off of. And now all of a sudden you have a content calendar, or you have a cluster of ideas, and you're like, okay, well, now I need to reach out to these specific people because they're the people. So it kind of paints this continuous like picture of who you need to reach out to. So just by looking at the numbers and looking what people are resonating with, you've already kind of expanded things out a little bit more without having to do the research. And again, you saved time, and you've now allowed that space and that time to go towards other tasks, that are important for your business. But with that being said, now we move into mindfulness. Like, finally, you were in mindfulness, but now it's like you really have to take all of that together. And the questions that I typically, ask myself, I ask, the clients I work with when we're trying to come up with a digital marketing strategy for them is like, what makes you happy sharing? What can you share without pushing yourself too hard? What stuff comes easy, and what medium is that on? Some people just don't like writing blogs. Some people really enjoy, some people enjoy, writing, quick emails, and that's how they engage. Some people love social media. Where do you feel happy enjoying? What do you feel happy sharing? What platforms do you enjoy sharing on? Like, what's your go-to? Some people are diehard Pinterest pinners. Some people are, completely visual and do Instagram and then do IGTV, or a lot of, IG stories. And that's where they kind of get their information, lead generation. And then and again, flip side, what platforms feel like a chore? Again, like you raised your hand with, blogging. It's not your favorite. It might be something you're like, I should be doing, but it's like, how can you make it a little bit easier and find ways to maybe be able to do it at an increment that feels okay to you, but you don't feel obligated to do it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I have to say that, because when you said it, I started giggling. I'm not a big writer, and people here know that by now, but I'm not a big blogging fan. But I love talking, and that's why I do my podcast. That's why I do my YouTube videos, because I enjoy that. And it's easier for me to have these kind of conversations rather than go and sitting and writing them. But then on the opposite side, I do have a blog, but what I do is I take my videos and I transcribe them, and then I put it into blog form, because I don't have to go and get the content again. I just transcribe the videos and put it into blog format, and it is so much easier. So there's a little tip for all of you out there who are struggling to write blogs. If you already have content in the form of videos or audio, just get it transcribed. You have a great blog going out.
Exactly. And that is perfect. That is the perfect example of trying to find a way of utilizing what feels good for you and not forcing something that doesn't feel good for you, because we've all heard like, I should have a blog, and this, that, and the other thing. And blogs are great, but you can but the point is if you're somebody that isn't fond of writing, then like you said, take the video content and transcribe it. It's still the same thing. There's going to be keywords in it. There's going to be, phrasing that's going to help the search engine understand what the topic was about. But now you have a video component, and you have the component, and all you had to do is just take what was said and turn it into the blog. Perfect. And lastly, and I think this is kind of like what a lot of people have run into, especially in entrepreneurship, especially now that we're kind of in this more influencer based kind of like marketing, is how vulnerable are you willing to be? And this is regardless of whether you are an influencer or not, but I feel like because of that, a lot of people are getting a little bit more personal. And then for the people that are maybe a little bit more private, they're like, feel like I have to share more about my private life, but I'm not really comfortable. And really, it comes down to you. Maybe your audience likes the fact that you're very matter of fact and you're sticking with the facts, and you don't really need to talk about your personal life. Maybe interject every once in a while, but I think that there's kind of this marketing, I feel like to some people, maybe not the rule, but people are feeling a little bit more obligated to be a little bit more vulnerable in like their daily sharings, like, oh, I'm not having a good week. And like some people are very happy. Like I'm very happy to share like my vulnerability if it causes a conversation to happen that is like helpful to somebody else. But some people are like just really not there yet. And I think that we need to kind of with boundaries, how much are you willing to share? And, how do you want to share that? Do you only want to share the personal stories with your email list of people that really engaged with you? And then do you want to keep other, maybe more public posts, more, straight to the facts of what you do, or, your, podcast you did or anything like that? It's just keying into how you feel. You'll get a knot in your stomach when you start to question, like, did I say too much? And then that's kind of an indication of like, maybe the marketing, you need to take a step back.
Yeah.
With how much you're sharing.
Yeah, the other thing that I've noticed as well is, and this is particular for me when I started my business, I didn't want to share anything personal because I knew it was going to be out there. So again, that's a fear of visibility, fear of being vulnerable and sharing certain things. And today I share things, but I don't share personal things all the time, because I think if I just overdo it, people are going to go, ugh, another story. Ugh, she's talking about herself again. And you need to have a good balance. You need to have a good balance.
Yeah. And you need to obviously, because like, as much as it's like the time factor of mindfulness, it's also the subject factor. And if you're sharing stuff, you're almost like kind of emptying your cup in a way, you know what I mean? And it's not getting refilled because you're kind of sharing a lot and you're not feeling replenished in a way. It can do a lot as well for like your marketing and how you feel. You might become resentful. You're like, no, but I'm telling the story. And again, when it becomes personal and you don't have that kind of response that you were thinking, you're like, is there something wrong with me? And there's nothing. It's just one of those things where I think when people try and they kind of are like, I need to do this because everybody else is doing this, which leads into the next topic. But it's just, it becomes too much. So again, just knowing what your comfort level is, like people will enjoy what you have to say. And again, like you will have, like, there's always a customer out there for you. So that's just always my main thing, is just share how much you want to share, because we need to have boundaries as well. So with that, I have like a few bullet points just on like main kind of topics that, a lot of people I've spoken with over the years have just like where their pain points are. So the first one is creating transparency at a level you decide as a solopreneur entrepreneur. And what I mean by this is like, this is your business and you feel you want to begin to take a step back from how much you share. Some options could be, and it could be you want to share more, you want to share less. So whatever I say, take the opposite approach if you're going to go in that direction. But like sharing, an example could be like, you write 2 blogs a week and that's just like way too much. Can you take a step back and instead make like 1 blog a month, but maybe it be a little bit more hefty of a blog? It takes you still less time than writing 2 blogs a week, but you're still sharing something, but you're kind of creating it at a level that you feel comfortable with. Or, maybe you share a lot on social media, maybe sharing a little bit less, or maybe you want to share a specific amount more, creating this transparency of like, this is how available I am. Because when you kind of outwardly show this, it shows people like how much you want to share. This is your time commitment and everything like that. Sharing a little bit more and edging into a personal approach again. Like, do you want to share more of yourself and begin to be a little bit more vulnerable? Do you want to share less of yourself? and you're beginning ensuring your voice matches the comfort level of your transparency. Because sometimes with marketing, we become accustomed to, how we started. We're so stuck on how we started that we're afraid to change because, again, we think that people are going to drop off, and people may drop off, but that's just, based on our comfort level of what we're sharing, how often we're sharing. And obviously, if people drop off, they weren't your ideal audience to begin with. And want to make a little asterisk with this, that like, make sure to adjust in a consistent manner, but not an overnight manner. Like, this is a slow and steady wins the race kind of process. You don't need to wake up and say, like, I'm only gonna write one blog a month. Like, maybe if you're doing, I'm going to take a step back and say one blog a week, maybe you do a blog every other week. And that's how you incrementally step back and you can kind of move into your new approach. But just creating transparency is definitely, because then people will be like, okay, well, this is what we can expect from, this entrepreneur now in this business. Another one is, of course, sustainable social media approaches as well. Social media is like huge with marketing, of course, whether it's paid or organic. And a lot of people run into like, how should I be posting? Should I be doing this? I saw this article and it says that 3 p.m. on Tuesday is like the best time I should be, but I'm at a meeting at that time. How do I do this? So like, with that being said, social media is obviously great for marketing. You can throw in blogs and pictures and videos and everything, but understand where your audience is, of course. If you're posting to Twitter and nobody's really on Twitter, don't post on Twitter. Put your energy on the platforms that people enjoy most. I remember, like, luckily, I think we're finally understanding that it's better to be good at like 1 to 2 social media platforms, or even just one. And that's where your audience is. Because back then, like, I remember everybody had like every icon at like their footer of their website. And then you'd go and some were updated every, some have been forgotten for years and everything like that. And it just was like, okay, like, now maybe it's better to just focus on 1 or 2 instead of being everywhere, because it's not really beneficial. If there's a platform you don't enjoy, get rid of it. As long as it really is not going to be, even if you feel like it is like, oh, well, people are engaging, if it doesn't feel good, like, is there a way that you can migrate them over to the other platform? Like, hey, I'm going to be shifting most of my stuff over here. Give this page a like and you'll get the same updates. There are ways that you can verbally kind of shift people over. And if they're really interested, they'll follow you over. It's not going to be too much of a jump for them. And then create a social sharing schedule that fits your own schedule or that of your customers. An example I have is you post I use this example because it talks about like sustainability and consistency versus like going all in and burning yourself out. You post every day and make $100 a month. You post every day, make $100 a month from it, but you give up after 3 months. So you made $300. You post half as much and make $50 a month, but you continue to do that for a year and you make $600. So consistency over quantity. It's always like, it's a very basic example, but it just shows that if you're consistent, even if you're not doing it as much, you'll still end up with more. So that's kind of with social media. I don't know your thoughts on how, like, on social media or not, or your favorite platforms or anything like that, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's very true. And I always say this, choose either 1 or 2 social media platforms that you're comfortable with, but not just that you're comfortable with, also with the fact that your audience is there. They are there. So if you're hanging out on Facebook, but your audience is actually on Instagram, well, then you need to move to Instagram. I mean, it's logic, right? Yes. But then also, I always talk about the 3 C's. About the first one is clarity, and you've kind of, nailed that down right here in this podcast about getting very clear about who your customers are, where they're hanging out, what you want to do. And also your mindfulness is where you're stepping in. And then the other C is consistency, being very consistent, either on 1 or 2 platforms at the most, being very consistent, posting and just doing it. Like you said, consistency over quantity. And then the last C is commitment. Once you're consistent with it, you need to be committed to do it over and over and over again. And you will see traction. You will see people coming back to you. But it's just about being consistent. Things don't happen overnight, okay? Organic growth does take time. And if you're open to that and you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to wait, and be consistent, you will see the benefit of it, no doubt whatsoever. But you have to be open-minded to the fact that it will take time, and you just got to be consistent. So that's what I always say. I always refer to the 3 C's, especially when it comes to social media, because I think this is where people get so flustered trying to be everywhere and do everything. I know I did as well. I made the exact same mistake.
Oh, I did too. So like when I say it, it's like based on also just me being like, I have people that are really good with Pinterest in my life, and I'm just like, it's something where I just pin stuff, and like it works for them, but for me and just, you know, how I do things, it just doesn't. So I was just like, you know what? It's working for them, and they do an amazing job with it. And I'm still like, some days I go in and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna pin this recipe.
But then somebody approached me and said, oh my gosh, but you work with professionals, so you need to be on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, I am on LinkedIn, but it's not my main strategy. Maybe like you said, maybe with Pinterest, you could be doing more of it, but you wouldn't enjoy it. So maybe with LinkedIn, I could be more on there, and I could be doing so much more with it, but I'm just not in that place right now. So maybe in the future, I'll let go of Facebook and Instagram, and I'll go completely into LinkedIn. Heavens know where it will go. But it's a decision that I made because I felt comfortable with it. And it's a decision that each and every one of you can make as well. You can decide what you're comfortable with and what you want to do and what you don't want to do. There's no good or bad. There's no right or wrong. It's just your decision.
I agree. It's just like, it really comes down to the comfort level. Even if somebody is telling you like, you need to be here, it's just like, maybe I'm not there yet. Again, maybe if I shift things around again, and like I do another mindful, you know, kind of audit, if you will. I don't want to call it an audit, but you know, it just kind of looking over everything. I'm like, yeah, I can take this off of my plate. You know, maybe I can have time to learn this, but at the moment I'm good.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I love how it all comes together in just one simple sentence: just be authentic, be yourself. That's what it's all about.
Through all of that, in the end, it's like going through all the steps. In the end, it's just like, how do you feel? Like, just be yourself. Like, that's the easiest thing you can do. And then everything else will make a lot more sense when you sit down with the numbers and what you're doing, what you're automating, what you want to be personalized. Because some people want to send a personal email. That makes them feel good. So what can you do to take the other steps off so that you can send that personal email at the end of this other process that was automated for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's sometimes that people try and overcomplicate. They think like, oh my gosh, okay, so I have to be authentic. So how do I be authentic? And that's where they try so hard to be themselves that they're actually impersonating somebody else or copying other people, where you just need to sit back and just be yourself. I mean, that's why I love doing these podcasts and why I love doing it on video, because it is not just the audio where people can hear you talking. They can see your facial expressions. They can see the way you talk. Like I always say,
they can see my cat Freddie.
Yes, and I talk a lot with my hands. So my hands are always all over the place. and that's me. I don't need to hide it. I don't need to, you know, tie my hands down and not talk without it, because otherwise it wouldn't be authentic. So for all of you out there, I absolutely love what Sarah had to share with us here today. It's just the mindfulness in your marketing comes down together to just being authentic and being yourself. And again, I know that can be very hard for some, especially if you're starting out. If you want to grow your visibility, especially online, it is very hard to be authentic at first, but it comes naturally over time. You just got to be consistent with it and keep putting yourself out there. But Sarah, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here with me. It has been an absolute amazing discussion, and I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for bringing your expertise onto the podcast as well. Before we get going, obviously, you want to make sure that for those of you who's got questions, you can obviously get a hold of Sarah. So what we're going to do is below in the show notes, there will be a link where you can send Sarah an email, get in touch with her, but also her Instagram handle is there, so you can go and stalk her out a little bit on Instagram. And she's got some great stuff. Yeah, you've got a great Instagram account, and I've been following you for a while as well. So for those of you listening, go and follow Sarah on Instagram, and I'm sure she'd love to connect with you there. So Sarah, is there any last minute notes or any last minute tips that you want to give everybody?
I guess it's just pulling it together, just like be okay with having these like discussions, and know that if you need to take a step back, it's because it's something that you need to do. It's not any shortcoming in your business. I think it's easy to get in your head when you're like, okay, I need to take these steps back. I need to be more mindful. And like, am I letting this go? Is this bad? And it's like, no, if it's gonna better your business and kind of tighten up what you need to do this successfully, then, sometimes you need to hear it from somebody else. So, I hope that it gives people the grace to just be like, yes, I need to do this for me and for the business. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate your time for being here.
Thank
for
you.
those of you listening, if this podcast episode really resonated with you, if you learned something today, if it gave you one of those light bulb moments, then by all means, like this episode or leave us a comment below. We would love to hear from you. So thank you again, Sarah, for your time being here with us. And I just want to wish you a lovely day. Enjoy it. And I'm sure we're going to be in touch fairly soon again.
Yes, you too as well. Thank you so much for having me on. This is wonderful.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.